On the day of the World Cup final, the greatest match in football, the culmination of 4 weeks of competition, the moment that the winner of this tournament will remember for the rest of their lives, something is going to happen that has never happened before in the history of the World Cup. The winning captain will lift the trophy. They will hold it above their head. The crowd will roar. The confetti will fall. And standing right there in the middle of the celebration, personally handing that trophy to the winning captain, will be Donald Trump, not a FIFA official, not the head of state of a neutral country, not a figure with any historical connection to the sport of football. Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States, a man who was absent from the USA's own opening World Cup match because he was attending a UFC event, and FIFA, the organization whose founding principles include political neutrality, whose statutes require member associations to be free from political interference, whose entire stated identity is built around the idea that football transcends politics and belongs to everyone, has said they have no objection. Let that sit for a moment. FIFA has no objection. I am MB. This is House of MB. And today we are going inside the story of how Donald Trump has taken over the 2026 FIFA World Cup and why FIFA, step by step, decision by decision, let it happen. Let us start with the trophy story because it broke just days ago, and the reaction it generated tells you everything you need to know about how the world sees this tournament's political context. Soccer insider Ben Jacobs reported that Trump had personally informed FIFA of his wish to hand the World Cup trophy to the eventual winners himself. Jacobs further reported that FIFA had no objection to Trump breaking the presentation protocol that has governed World Cup trophy ceremonies for decades. The presentation protocol matters. It is not just ceremony for ceremony's sake. The World Cup trophy presentation is one of the most watched moments in the history of televised sport. It is the image that defines the tournament. It is the moment that every player who has ever dreamed of winning the World Cup has visualized, lifting that golden trophy above their head in front of their teammates, their country, and over 1 billion people watching around the world. That moment has always belonged to football. The protocol exists specifically to ensure that the trophy presentation is about the winning team, not about any individual political figure who happens to be present. It is one of the clearest practical expressions of FIFA's stated commitment to keeping football separate from political grandstanding. And Donald Trump told FIFA he wants to be at the center of that moment. He wants to be the one handing the trophy to the winning captain. He wants to be in the photograph that will be reproduced billions of times around the world, the image of the greatest sporting moment of 2026. And FIFA said they have no objection. This is not a small thing. This is not a scheduling matter or a logistical detail. This is a fundamental statement about whose tournament this actually is. It is a statement that when the president of the most powerful country in the world decides he wants to insert himself into the central image of football's greatest moment, FIFA's response is not to protect the integrity of that moment or to defend the protocol that exists specifically to prevent political figures from commandeering football's symbolism. FIFA's response is to accommodate the request. The reaction from around the football world was swift and fierce. Fans, analysts, and former players across multiple countries expressed outrage on social media. Critics pointed out that no previous American president had ever attempted to insert themselves into the World Cup trophy presentation, not when the United States hosted the World Cup in 1994, not at any previous tournament. Critics also pointed out that Trump had been conspicuously absent from the United States team's opening match, choosing instead to attend a UFC event called UFC Freedom $250, which raised obvious questions about whether his interest in the tournament is about football or about the political opportunity the trophy presentation moment represents. And this trophy story does not exist in isolation. It is simply the latest and most visible expression of a pattern that has been building throughout this entire World Cup, a pattern of political presence and political control that has made this the most politically shaped World Cup in the history of the tournament. Let us talk about ICE, because this is where the political control of this World Cup has had the most direct and frightening impact on the fans who traveled to attend it. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is the U.S. federal agency responsible for immigration enforcement. In February 2026, NBC News reported that ICE personnel may be present at World Cup matches, and that the agency had issued no internal guidance prohibiting immigration arrests at stadiums. Read that again. No internal guidance prohibiting immigration arrests at World Cup stadiums. This meant that, as fans from around the world were traveling to the United States to attend matches, the Federal Immigration Enforcement Agency, that has been conducting highly publicized and often controversial operations across America, had no specific policy preventing it from arresting people at or near the stadiums hosting the games. The practical impact of this on the atmosphere around the World Cup was immediate. Workers at SoFi Stadium, one of the host venues, protested in May over a potential ICE deployment at matches. Fan groups from multiple countries advised their members to carry documentation at all times and to be aware of their rights if approached by federal agents. The message sent to international fans was clear, whether intended or not. Come to America for the World Cup, but understand that the immigration enforcement environment you are entering is one where your presence is subject to scrutiny and potential challenge, even inside the stadium where you have a ticket. On June 1st, Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna said federal officials had told him that civil immigration enforcement would not take place at World Cup games or events in Los Angeles. But the assurance came with a qualifier that should give every international fan pause. The sheriff specifically noted that this assurance was, quote, subject to change, a guarantee of safety from immigration enforcement at a sporting event, subject to change. This is the environment FIFA chose to operate its tournament in. This is the environment FIFA accepted as the framework within which its stated values of welcoming the world would be tested. And the political figure who set this environment, the president under whose administration ICE operates, under whose policies the travel bans affecting 39 countries were established, under whose government the message that international visitors to America face an uncertain and potentially threatening immigration enforcement environment was sent, is the same man FIFA has agreed should personally hand the World Cup trophy to the winning captain. Now let us talk about J.D. Vance, because the Vice President of the United States made a statement about this World Cup that deserves to be heard clearly and in full, because it captures in one sentence the political reality of this tournament. When concerns were raised during an early task force meeting about the impact of Trump's immigration policies on the World Cup's ability to welcome international fans, J.D. Vance responded. He said, quote, "Of course, everybody is welcome to come and see this incredible event, but when the time is up, they will have to go home. Otherwise, they will have to talk to Secretary Noem. Secretary Noem is Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the cabinet official who oversees ICE, the Vice President of the United States, responding to concerns about the welcoming environment for World Cup visitors, directed international fans to the head of immigration enforcement. That is the political context of this World Cup. That is the message the government co-hosting this tournament sent to the world. And FIFA's response was to continue the tournament, continue the relationship with the Trump administration, and agree that the President of the United States should personally hand the trophy to the winners. The boycott movement this political context has generated is real and significant. An online petition in the Netherlands gathered 174,000 signatures calling for a boycott of the tournament in protest against U.S. immigration policy. Former FIFA President Sepp Blatter, a man whose own complicated relationship with FIFA we have covered extensively on this channel, publicly endorsed the fan-led boycott movement. When Sepp Blatter is the one calling for a boycott of a FIFA tournament, it is a remarkable moment in the history of the organization he once led. CNN noted that Trump's travel ban affected 39 countries, which it described as mostly non-white, African, or Muslim-majority countries, the geographic and demographic reality of which nations' fans are being excluded from this World Cup is not a random distribution. It maps onto specific political choices that have been made by the Trump administration, choices that FIFA accepted as the operating framework for a tournament it had awarded to a coalition of host nations before those choices were made. Now let us talk about something that this World Cup has produced that almost nobody is discussing in the context of this tournament's environmental commitments: the carbon footprint, An independent study published in June 2026 by carbon accounting firm Greenly estimated the total carbon footprint of this World Cup as equivalent to 7.8 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. 7.8 million metric tons? More than double the official emissions reported for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, a tournament that was itself criticized heavily for its environmental impact. The primary driver of this massive carbon footprint is the geographic scale of this tournament. Matches being played across 16 cities in 3 countries means an extraordinary amount of team and spectator transit, air travel, ground transportation, and the carbon cost of moving hundreds of thousands of people across enormous distances over 4 weeks. Spectator and team transit alone accounted for 87.8% of the total carbon footprint, a figure that reflects the fundamental tension between this expanded, geographically distributed tournament format and any serious commitment to environmental responsibility. FIFA had emphasized climate leadership and alignment with the goals of the Paris Agreement in its hosting framework. The United States, under the Trump administration, withdrew from the Paris Agreement in 2026, and the tournament FIFA is hosting in partnership with the Trump administration has produced a carbon footprint more than double its predecessor. These facts coexist. They coexist with FIFA's sponsorship deal with Saudi oil company Aramco, a deal that critics have specifically flagged as fundamentally inconsistent with any genuine commitment to environmental sustainability. And they coexist with the tournament's expansion to 48 teams, an expansion that FIFA presented partly in terms of inclusivity and development, but which has also dramatically increased the environmental cost of the tournament. Now let us talk about Mexico, because one of the most dramatic and genuinely dangerous stories of this World Cup has unfolded not in American stadiums, but in the Mexican host city of Guadalajara. In February 2026, Mexican and American intelligence operations led to the capture and killing of Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known as El Mencho, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, one of the most powerful and violent criminal organizations in Mexico. The aftermath was immediate and terrifying. Members of El Mencho's cartel launched retaliatory violence across the state of Jalisco. Shootouts, explosions, roads blocked by burned-out vehicles, arson attacks on businesses. The violence directly affected Guadalajara, one of FIFA's World Cup host cities. Tourism in the area was disrupted. Security concerns about matches played in the city became major news internationally. The Mexican government's response was to deploy 100,000 troops across the country for security during the tournament, the single largest security deployment in modern Mexican football history. FIFA's response was to confirm that it had no intention of moving any matches away from Guadalajara. The tournament proceeded as planned: 100,000 troops, cartel retaliatory violence, and FIFA decided the show must go on. Now let us step back and look at the full picture. Because when you put all of these elements together, what you see is a tournament that has been shaped at every level by forces outside football's control, in ways that no previous World Cup has experienced to anything like this degree. The travel bans that prevented fans from 39 countries from attending, the ICE presence that created fear for international visitors regardless of their legal status, the vice president directing fans to the head of immigration enforcement, the carbon footprint double that of Qatar, the cartel violence in a host city FIFA refused to move matches from, the boycott petition with 174,000 signatures, Sepp Blatter endorsing that boycott, the water bottle ban in extreme heat, the empty seats FIFA tried to explain away, the VAR official investigated for a white nationalist gesture, the goalkeeper whose mother could not get a visa, and now, at the very end of it all, a demand from the President of the United States to personally hand the World Cup trophy to the winners at the most watched moment of the most watched event on Earth. And FIFA's response to that demand: we have no objection. This is what football's governing body looks like when it chooses commercial and political accommodation over the values it claims to represent. This is what happens when one organization has monopoly control over the world's most popular sport and decides, decision by decision, that the money and the political support are worth more than the principles. The players on the pitches are not responsible for any of this. The football being played has been extraordinary. Upsets, drama, moments of genuine beauty that remind you why this sport connects billions of people across every boundary and difference that divides the world outside the stadium walls. But the story behind the tournament, the political and commercial machinery that has shaped every dimension of how this World Cup has been organized, who has been welcomed, who has been excluded, and who will be photographed handing the trophy to the winners, is a story that the matches themselves cannot tell. House of MB is here to tell it. I am MB. This is House of MB. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Share this video with every football fan who deserves to see the full picture of this tournament. And I will see you in the next one.